Can you believe it? The Dodgers are the World Series champions of 2020. The Lakers won the championship this year. First time since 1988 that both the Lakers and Dodgers have won championships. Incredible year. I had to come on and address it and put this before our episode today because it just doesn't happen that often. Obviously, the Lakers, 10 years ago in 2010 won the championship, so it wasn't that long ago. And other franchises have to deal with a lot worse, droughts than that. But I was born in 1987. The Dodgers won it in '88, and that was the last time. And all we've seen since '88 is the highlight of the Kirk Gibson home run that ended up winning. That led to a World Series win for the Dodgers. But just seeing the game, on Tuesday night, it was incredible. It was very lucky they pulled Snell out of the game, obviously, and I'm sure you'll all see the debate shows on whether analytics really do, they matter maybe during the regular season, but when it's the postseason and you can't lose your feel of the game. And the feel of the game last night, the eye test would tell you, how do you take that guy out when he's dominating? And especially the first three hitters in the lineup, Betts, Seager, and Turner, were 0 for 6 with 6 strikeouts. And you're going to pull him just because the numbers say so? I think I saw one of the analysts say it. We have lost our feel for the game. Some of these managers are controlled by analytics, so the front office is controlling so much. And I get it. Numbers do tell you a lot of things, and it's good information. But it should not control the way you manage a game, especially in the postseason when you know what? Sometimes you got to throw the numbers out the window and just watch the game. That Snell was unhittable for the Rays, the pitcher for the Tampa Bay Rays. Unhittable. And just because it's about to be the third time through the lineup, you pull him, it was just a terrible decision. And you could see the Dodgers right away. As soon as that next reliever came in, they capitalized, and boom, 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 Dodgers win the World Series. Unbelievable. So bad on the Rays, I have to say. And they're talented, but they don't have the stars that the Dodgers do. And you know what? The stars showed up for the Dodgers in this series. Unbelievable job by the bullpen, actually, outside of, a couple other relievers like Kenley Jansen and a couple other guys that, weren't at their best and maybe don't have the same stuff they used to anymore. But, man, finally Dave Roberts was able to keep Urias out there for 2 games in this series, multiple inning saves, and he was dominant. And he had ice in his veins, as they say, or ice water, whatever it is, and he completely dominated and shut the door for us. But the entire bullpen for the Game 6, after Gonsolin gave up that run in the first inning, they didn't give up another run the whole game. So that's a lights-out bullpen for the Dodgers, which we've been wanting them to address it every offseason. Please fix the bullpen because it let us down in the past. And, of course, we got Mookie Betts. We basically stole him from the Red Sox. Just the fact that we were able to get him is ridiculous. We didn't commit to Machado. We didn't go out and get Bryce Harper. We found the right guy, which was Mookie Betts, and he proved it. His base running was incredible. He made some great reads, going first to third or, getting home, even on a ground ball on the Game 6 the other night. Just on a ground ball to first base from third, he just got a great jump, and he scored, and it was huge. And then, of course, he hit the big insurance run homer in the 8th inning for that Game 6 as well. He just does everything right. He's great in the clubhouse. Great personality. He's exactly who the Dodgers want to build around for the future. Incredible game. Finally, Clayton Kershaw. We've all been through it with him. His postseason struggles, and he won 2 games in the World Series this year. What can you say about a guy that's been through so much? He's as dominant as he's been in the regular season. I'm very happy for Kershaw. He definitely deserves a World Series, and it definitely will help his legacy, especially when the Astros stole it from the Dodgers in 2017. This is a huge World Series for so many people. Also, if you look at Dave Roberts, the manager, some would argue if he would have lost this series, he could be out with that much talent. This was a huge win for Dave Roberts. So good for him. He pulled the right strings this series, didn't overmanage, which clearly the Rays overmanaged. And huge for Dave Roberts' legacy as well. So this might buy him some more years with the Dodgers. When you have that much talent, you keep knocking at the door and you don't get there. Usually there's some kind of, hangover, like Super Bowl hangover type of thing where you just, like Atlanta Falcons, they just can't get back to what they were before. But when you get to the World Series 3 out of 4 years, you got to come away with at least one. And they finally did. So good for the Dodgers. I'll shift to the Lakers. If those of you that know me, I'm not the hugest LeBron fan. I've kind of been a LeBron hater for a lot of his career, probably since 2010, since he left Cleveland the first time, put the super team together with D Wade, Bosh. They end up getting Ray Allen, like all this help for that team over those 4 years in Miami. But he's stacked the deck since 2010, in my opinion. I could go off on him forever. But I will say this. He was unbelievable this season and was unbelievable in the playoffs. He always brought it. I mean, we could go into the decision to give the ball to Danny Green, who was wide open after LeBron was double or triple teamed. I personally would have liked a pick and roll with Anthony Davis and LeBron at the top of the key there and at least have one of those two options. Danny Green was terrible the entire series. Why would you trust him now to make I want my stars shooting at the end of games, unless it's a guy that's proven it before, and some would say Danny Green has. But again, with the eye test, he'd been terrible that series. So why would you want to count on that guy at that moment? In those moments, I want my stars to take big shots, just like AD made a game winner earlier in the playoffs. I want my stars to take shots. Sometimes the right play is not always the right play. The right play is I want my guy with the ball at the end. Outside of that decision, LeBron was incredible. He played his ass off the whole series. And, when AD plays well, the Lakers usually win. So the only game, they dropped, 2 games in the series, whatever it was. But and Jimmy Butler was with a Herculean performance a few times, and he was just out of gas at the end of that series. But got to give it to LeBron. Huge for the city of LA. I mean, he delivered. He's been to 3 different organizations, and he's delivered where he's been. Yes, he's had a lot of talent with him since 2010, but he has delivered, and nobody else had. And it was everybody always in sports wants okay, if we played this guy or this team on a neutral site, who would win? Meaning no travel, no fans, same conditions for everybody. And you know what? Everybody had the same conditions, and the Lakers and LeBron were mentally tougher than everybody else, and they just were better. And so you could say the Clippers weren't there, Milwaukee wasn't there, they didn't have to face Toronto, they didn't have to face Boston in the championship. Everybody had the same conditions. So I got to give it to LeBron and the Lakers, and Frank Vogel deserves a ton of credit. Getting these old veterans to buy in, turning Dwight Howard around, letting playoff Rondo do his thing. KCP was much better this year. Just getting all these veteran guys to buy in and defend, it was incredible. So first time, like I said, since 1988 that both the Lakers and the Dodgers have won championships. And what a great feeling for Southern California, man. We needed this. In a crazy 2020, we really, really needed this. So just wanted to get my 2 cents in there on the Lakers and Dodgers. Couldn't be happier. I wish I could play Randy Newman's I Love LA right now, but there's a copyright issue, of course, so you guys can play it on your own Spotify accounts and just bask in the glory of Los Angeles. So anyway, just wanted to jump in and say that before my interview today. I got a great interview with Todd Blyleven. You guys are going to really love it. He's got a crazy story about the Vegas shooting at the country concert. He was there, so definitely stay tuned for that. His dad was a Hall of Fame pitcher. So enjoy my interview with Todd Blyleven, and have a great day. Go Lakers, go Dodgers. Woo. What up? This is the Too Tall Sports Podcast, episode 26 today with Todd Blyleven. He is the son of Hall of Fame Major League Baseball pitcher Bert Blyleven. Most of you older generation might know that name. Todd was a player himself professionally. He grew up in Orange County as well and went to high school out here. He also scouted for 8 years and signed a bunch of big-name players that you guys would know. And also, Todd was involved in one of the scariest, most terrifying nights in U.S. history. October 1st, 2017, of course, was the Las Vegas shooting at the country concert near the Mandalay Bay. Todd and his wife and relatives were at the concert. They all survived, and he helped others survive as well. It's an amazing story that he was willing to share with us, and we were very lucky to get a firsthand account of what happened on that crazy night 3 years ago. So my guest today, again, is Todd Blyleven. Awesome episode. I think you guys are really going to love it. Great insight into his dad as the broadcaster and the Hall of Famer as well, and just Todd's life in general, being the son of a Hall of Famer and all the great stories from growing up in the clubhouse, all that stuff. So I think you guys are going to really like it. Once again, as always, you can reach me at Too Tall Sports Podcasts. You can find me on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and review where you can. And I really appreciate the support. and enjoy the episode on Todd Blyleven. Make sure you stay to the end so you hear this full story that you guys will want to hear. It's also on The Athletic. If you ever want to look it up, you can just type in his name and look up one of the firsthand accounts from the tragic night that night. But overall, mostly positive, great episode. And here it is with Todd Blyleven. All right, welcome back to another edition of the Too Tall Sports Podcast. My next guest is the CEO of the Scout Hub, connecting scouts and players through his web-based platform. He is the son of Major League Baseball Hall of Famer Bert Blyleven, and he himself played professional baseball and scouted in his post-career as well for a few different organizations. He's an Orange County native, kinda, just like me, and he played his college ball at Cypress College and eventually Fresno State, among other places, and he's doing big things, I believe, living in Texas now. And he is Todd Blyleven. What's going on, Todd? How are you?
Hey, nice to be here. Thanks a lot, Brett. Appreciate it.
You got it, man. Glad to have you on. I mean, you definitely have the most famous last name that I've had on the show, so that's pretty cool.
That's good. Hopefully in a good way.
Hopefully you live up to it, right?
Yeah, really.
I know. I mean, you've done so much in your baseball and post-career, and I know you've done a lot outside of baseball as well. But just in general, real quick, before we get to your career, what's it been like for you and your family this year in 2020, and just coming from California and moving to Texas and the whole deal in the last year or two?
Yeah, we moved actually from Orange County about 3 years ago, and that was pretty hard. My son was going into 8th grade, my daughter into 6th grade, so obviously it was a little bit of a culture shock. But we're about 30 minutes north of Dallas, so where we're at, we're in the suburbs. It's like the sports mecca of the nation, I think now.
Yeah.
So it's not like we moved onto a ranch, but not to say that would be a bad thing.
Right.
But we're really, really lucky. The kids are adjusted. We love Texas. We have friends and family. We love California, but it's been a really nice change. Yeah.
That's good. And as far as like dealing with the pandemic and stuff like that, I know you guys, it's a little more loose out there than it is here, but how have you guys handled that this year?
There's a joke that goes around Texas where we have all of our Texas Rangers positioned at the border. So we are not letting COVID into this state. But no, it's been really nice. We've had sports. Our football teams are playing. My daughter's in the drill team, so we get to see her perform during halftime, which is really just awesome. And my son's baseball really didn't stop. So he's a junior in high school here, and he got a chance to play summer ball. He's playing fall ball, and aside from doing online classes and things, they go back and forth, but it's been pretty normal. Everybody's respectful though of wearing their masks and sanitizing and keeping our distance. So it's not like we're going out to parties.
Right.
But,
right.
Yeah, but it's been nice to watch the kids play.
Well, that's good. That's awesome. I'm glad it hasn't affected you guys too much. Now going back to kind of your upbringing, I know your dad, obviously played in the big leagues for a long time, and you were born in Minnesota. So what was it like in those early years growing up, basically in the clubhouse and just being around your dad in the big leagues, and just how was that whole experience for you growing up?
It was really a surreal, it was a different life. I could put it that way. I remember some of my first years, I was 7 years old in 1979 when the Pirates won the World Series. And that year I didn't go to school. I was kind of homeschooled through a Major League Baseball program, following my dad and the team from town to town, being the bat boy, cleaning the shoes. My locker, I shared a locker next to Willie Stargell, and Willie used to write down all the players' highlights of every single game on a little notepad, and at the end of the game, he would go to his notepad, he'd go to this big box that had all the yellow stars that went on the old Pirates hats, and he would give me these stars, and he'd say, here, go give 3 to Madlock, or go give 2 to Marino, or go give 1 to your dad. And so I used to run around and give all the players the stars. Well, throughout that year, I ended up getting a nickname called Tomato Face, because I had freckles all over my face and bright red hair. I just absolutely loved it. I mean, I fell in love with the players. All those players, became my uncles and my brothers. They used to swing on Dave Parker's arms when I was younger. all the way through up until, when I first started getting into high school. And then I got to be around guys like Kirby Puckett, and Kent Herbeck and Dan Gladden, and just all types of guys that you get a chance to go hit on the field. I mean, it was every day I got a chance to be a big leaguer growing up. I mean, every day got to put the uniform on and go take BP or go out and field ground balls with Gary Gaetti at third base. And then when guys like Cal Ripken would come into town, or an Ozzie Smith, I'd run out and I'd take ground balls with those guys. Or it was just a completely different life. But the players, I always respected their time. I knew that once batting practice was over and that lounge time in between BP and, say, going out and taking infield, outfield back in the old days, or getting ready for the game, there was this all of a sudden a mental focus change, and everything got serious. And I appreciated that. I tried to stay out of their way. And then I also had a job to do too. I was the bat boy, the ball boy. I was cleaning shoes,
sure,
whatever I could do. But man, I had so much fun. It was an absolute blast. Yeah.
When did you really start to pick up on, like, tips to becoming a better player, not just in awe of hanging out with Hall of Famers, but when did it become like, what kind of stuff did you learn as you grew up before you went to high school and all that stuff?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously in not just, in being around the game and being around those players, I was a student of the game too. So I would always, guys like Ricky Henderson be out in left field, maybe just getting some fly balls, and I'd go out and take fly balls with him. And I'd ask him first, hey, Mr. Anderson, you mind if I take some fly balls with you? And he'd say no. Obviously, I was not fast growing up, but I wanted to learn what it was like to be Ricky Henderson on the base path and learn what he was looking at. So we would have conversations about those things, and it was so memorable. It was, when my dad got into the Hall of Fame, I got a chance to see Ricky Henderson again and Ozzie Smith, and it wasn't just a hello, Mr. Henderson, do you remember me? It was a hug. Come here. God, you've gotten big. I remember you being on the field. But, throwing bullpens next to Nolan Ryan, getting a chance to hear Nolan Ryan just exasperate the air that comes out of his body when he's throwing that hard. And then he's throwing a changeup, and I say, hey, Mr. Ryan, how come you're breathing so hard when you throw the changeup? And he goes, hey, Todd, it's just a grip, and I'm throwing it as hard as I can. You learn these little things. Frank Viola and the changeup, when Frankie V got, I think he won Cy Young in 87 or 88. But I never stopped learning. And even when I was playing pro ball and, like yourself, you get an opportunity to be around guys that are having success, and you just appreciate it. And so you just want to continually learn. Yeah,
sure.
It was awesome.
That is great. I mean, not many people get the opportunity to be around that many Hall of Famers and just great players all the time. As far as your career goes, so you ended up moving out to Orange County after a while. What was the transition like for you? And you actually started your career at Mater Dei, which is, one of the big high schools out here, big name private schools. What was your transition, basically from Minnesota or all around the country to now you're kind of settling in and going to high school in Orange County?
Yeah, it was interesting because, growing up, I had friends in different communities throughout the country, but I didn't have like a whole year where I spent an entire year at, say, 6th grade or 8th grade. So what my parents did when we went to Mater Dei was I wanted to play football, I wanted to try it, and I thought that was just a great experience for me. And what it did was it gave me 60 friends right off the bat, going into high school. And so
yeah.
Had a great experience at Mater Dei, playing football, playing baseball, met some amazing people. And then all of a sudden, baseball's calling my dad to Minnesota, and, we uproot, we moved for, I think it was about 4 or 6 months. And then contract stuff didn't work out. So then we moved back to California, and I ended up graduating at Villa Park, where I played baseball, and I just had some incredible friends. So, that was really the start of kind of being in Orange County.
So once you came back and you were at Villa Park, what kind of pitcher were you then? Were you getting looks at that point? Were you did you know you had a future in baseball once you came back to California?
Yeah, when I was 13, I was playing in scout ball. So I was a pretty good pitcher, I should say. I didn't throw the hardest, but I was a good pitcher. Played Connie Mack, back in the day when Connie Mack's still really, really popular. At least it is here in the South. I'm not sure about the West Coast still, but we went to Farmington for 2 years, the Connie Mack World Series with Randy Vanderhook and the Long Beach Cardinals.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I got a chance to be part of all that. But it wasn't until about my junior year going into my senior year that I started to really feel like, hey, I could probably do this professionally. And then my senior year, I think I went 10-1 at Villa Park, and my velocity was up to 92, 94. I had scouts coming to all my ball games. I had scouts coming to the homes. And that's when I think I had a full ride scholarship to just about anywhere in the country. I had letters from everywhere coming in every week. It was awesome. Just on cloud nine. I think that was definitely the turning moment where I thought this is going to go beyond high school.
And you got drafted by the Angels, but you decided not to sign a little bit later in the draft, I saw. But you decide not to sign, and you start your career at Cal State Fullerton. But obviously, there's a story behind that. So how did you end up at Cypress College when you really had a seemingly good opportunity at Cal State Fullerton?
Yeah, so I was one of those kids, and looking back, because and I'll probably go into this as we get going in the conversation. I became a major league scout, but I overpriced myself. It really wasn't me. It was my parents wanted to try to negotiate the college scholarship deal compared to pro ball. I wanted to sign. I was one of those kids in high school. I just wanted to go play pro ball. That's what I had done my entire life, and so I was realistically probably more of a second, third round draft pick type guy. I had good pitch ability to my arm, good breaking ball, good control, good command. But I don't think I was that first round pick. And that's what a lot of teams came in and told me. They said, hey, second, third round, he's signable. And so I ended up signing a letter of intent to Cal State Fullerton, wanted to be with Vern Rule, which was an amazing college pitching coach, back in the day. And ended up signing my letter of intent. And about a month before school started, they ended up taking the OU Oklahoma job. So I went with them to Oklahoma. At the time where I was at in my life, I really wanted to be more in California. And so it just didn't work out. Well, I had played on the Long Beach Cardinal team where we just went to the College World Series with, I think, like 9 of the guys that were at Cypress at the moment. Doug McConaughey and Troy Babbitt, all these guys. So they started telling me, hey, you need to come back here, Bly, come to, So I'm going to Cypress. We won state that year. Had an incredible run, and ended my college career at Fresno State, where I signed again, or got drafted again by the Angels, and started my pro career. So. Right.
I mean, at that point, and I think you had gotten drafted by the Dodgers out of Cypress, right? You chose not to sign there too?
Yeah, that was again, I think my signability was too high. So I learned a lot in those couple of years. Sure. But I was really blessed. I got drafted 3 times, twice with the Angels and once with the Dodgers. So I guess I should have stayed in the West Coast.
Yeah, I know. They're trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
And then as far as your early minor league career, did you feel like once you got drafted and you're playing pro ball, was there much of a transition for you, or did you feel like I can compete at that level once you got to pro ball?
I thought I could compete for sure. I was pretty confident in my own abilities. I always knew that the game evolves. You have to evolve with it. You have to continue to learn. I think though when I got to AA and I got those 2 opportunities in big league camp, and I did everything I could. I was in the best shape of my life. I think I'd run a marathon that winter before. I'd done everything. I was throwing the ball as hard as I could, and I did really well, but I still didn't make it. And then just it kind of like downgraded from there. I realized, maybe this game's a little more difficult than, what I'm able to provide. So at that time, it's one of those things where you have to really look yourself in the mirror and decide, do I want to spend the next 3 years and be the Crash Davis, and run around and teach younger guys how to play the game, or do I move on and start my own career? And that's what I did.
Right. And as far as I believe you were a starter for most of your career, and then you kind of transitioned to a reliever. I had the same change, and you get closer to the big leagues and they kind of find a new role for you and you don't really have a choice. So how did you feel about going from a starter your whole life basically to a reliever now, and that might be your ticket?
It was really tough. I remember my first, even the warm-ups in the bullpen, I wanted to be able to get loose a little bit. And it was like, I think, gosh, I was in Hagerstown, Maryland. And it must have been, it felt like it was below 20. It was probably more like 35, 40, but I couldn't get loose. I couldn't do my pregame prep. Didn't have that massage. I wasn't prepared, and I was a workhorse. But once I got it, you start to establish routine. That's what it all comes down to, is routine, being able to know your body at that time. And I was pretty good from, coming out of the pen too. My fastball velocity got to 96, so started to increase that a little bit. I just didn't have the control and the command of the breaking ball like my dad did. I was more of a power pitcher, and I seemed to miss a little bit more arm side. I couldn't establish that fastball away with good command that you need to get to the big league level.
I was going to say 96 is pretty hard for the mid 90s at the time, that's throwing hard. So obviously you had a lot of talent, and you close.
Jim Bibby was my pitching coach when I was in the Pirates organization, and we did the towel drill. And I had done the towel drill before a bunch of times with my dad, but nothing close to what Jim Bibby did. And he got you to get so far out in front and really use your legs. I mean, today's game, you talk about sequencing and making sure, you're leading with your hip a little bit more and showing your backside. This is what old school pitching was anyways. And so Bibby got me to really use my backside. Well, anyways, I go out and I pitch, and I struck out the side, and I come into the clubhouse after, and the guys that were doing the charts behind the home plate, they go, "Hey, Bly, you know how hard you were throwing tonight?" And I'm like, I don't know, 92, 93. You were touching 96. You were up to 95. You were blowing guys. I'm like, really? Well, what's interesting is as soon as I got the call and I'm getting ready to warm up, I literally threw a pitch and fell over because I was trying to instill what Jim Bibby had taught me. I got so far out front over my left leg, I couldn't control it. I fell down. It was kind of funny, but yeah, I mean, just, the velocity, it's amazing what your body can do when you allow it to work properly. But again, I was always kind of missing more over the plate. I didn't give up a lot of hits, not a whole lot of home runs. And maybe if I would have stuck with it, who knows what could have happened. But
sure.
I'm happy I chose my path.
Yeah, definitely. And before we're, I guess, done with your career, I wanted to talk about you. I saw you went to play independent ball in Sioux City. I played independent ball as well at one point at the end of my career. A lot of guys, everyone says they'll never do it, but of course they end up doing it. Yeah. Did you do it as a way to get back to the big, to big league baseball, or did it give you a sense of joy in the game again that maybe you had lost? What was your experience in independent ball?
It was a blast. Number one, I wanted to keep playing. I mean, just like I think everybody that goes into indie ball, you want to keep playing. But I had Oil Can Boyd on my team and some other guys, and you talk about a loose clubhouse, man, it was crazy how loose this clubhouse was. But there was also too, there were a lot of former upper level pro guys that were still trying to come back. So once that game started or about to start, there was this seriousness of, all right, we joked around, we screwed around, maybe we didn't work as hard as we could have off the field, but once the lights come on, let's go. And it was instant professionalism. So I really had a lot of fun. I learned a lot from some guys there. I had some great coaches. And then I ended up getting back in. So It was great.
And then I did see in 96 and 97, you were with the Pirates and Brewers organizations for a little bit. I guess before you decided to leave baseball, what were those final couple years like for you?
Well, the last year with the Pirates, I thought was probably one of my more fun years in playing professionally, where I felt like I was playing for myself and not, I was kind of outside of the Bert Blyleven umbrella, and I was starting to put numbers up. And then my last year, with Milwaukee, I think mentally I kind of went into that year just knowing I don't know what I want to do anymore. It was that tug of, I had spent my entire life in baseball. Yeah. My entire life, it was in professional baseball. I had been around it. I had seen it. And it was kind of going away from my reach, if that makes sense, where it wasn't, I don't think it was attainable for me anymore. And I was really starting to get scared, and like, what was I supposed to do? I'm only getting older. My friends are graduating. Some of my friends were getting married and starting to have kids. And I didn't have a girlfriend at the time, living on the road, it's tough.
Yeah.
So it was, do I step out in the real world, not knowing really what that is anyways, because my dad was a big league baseball player. He wasn't a banker. He wasn't a businessman. So I took that leap into the unknown, and it was interesting.
Well, even though you're probably mentally exhausted from baseball, you decide to stay in it still and become a scout. So, yeah, I mean, at least maybe, but now you're on the other side of the game, though. So you were a scout for the Angels and Rockies over a course of 8 years. You helped sign guys like Troy Tulowitzki, Long Beach State dirtbag, of course, have to get that in there, and Kevin Jepson and Ian Stewart and some of the guys you told me about. So I knew, and it's funny, earlier you brought up that you were a student of the game. So you always saw yourself that way. How did that transition into you becoming a scout?
So, interesting story. When I got done playing, I went through, a major depression, just probably like a lot of players do. Didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. I think I was working construction. I delivered water. I was cleaning carpets. Really had no clue what I was supposed to be doing. And I met my wife now. She was my girlfriend at the time. And I was on the phone with my dad talking baseball. And I got off the phone and she says, have you ever thought about maybe going back into baseball somehow? She goes, just something, because every time you talk about baseball, you light up, a smile gets on your face. You always have these fun conversations with your dad. So I reached out to Tim Mead, that was with the Angels at the time, and asked Tim, talked to him for about an hour and a half about, what could I do in baseball? Like, is there some job outside of ticket sales or something I could do? And he goes, why don't you get into scouting? So I ended up going to the Major League Baseball Scouting Bureau school. That was in Phoenix at the time. That was, I think, in October of 2000. And no, 1999. Anyways, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And ended up doing really well there and got hired by the Angels, 2 months later and started my scouting career. But the transition of going, another funny story. I'm in scout school. Now, I played my entire life, just like you. Played pro ball, just like you.
Yeah.
Thinking, I'm going into the game. This scouting stuff's going to be easy. I know exactly what I'm doing. So we're watching an instructional ball game at the White Sox complex in Tucson. And Greg Norton happened to be up. And so it was like a 1-1 count. Norton hits a base hit to left center. He's on base, and I'm standing next to this old-time scout. And he, polyester pants, boots. He's got an old-fashioned stopwatch. He's got his cowboy hat on. And he was one of the instructors there. And he says, what'd you see right there? And I said, Norton went with his hands. It was good little fastball. He took it to left center. He goes, what else did you see? Well, how was his swing? What was his stance like? And so now I'm remembering like 2 pitches before looking at Norton's stance. I'm like, slightly off center a little bit, we're going through some scout lingo that I just learned, so I'm trying to like sound like a scout.
Yeah.
So he goes, how about the pitcher? What was the pitcher like? And I'm like, okay, pitcher, I knew he throws across his body, struggled to get away a little bit. So, lack of extension. Was the shortstop in position? And I'm like, I don't know if the shortstop was in position or not. Was the left fielder in position? And was were their pre-pitch setup correct? And I'm like, he goes, how did he field the ball? And how would you grade out the left fielder's arm? And I'm like, oh man, I was watching Norton round first base. I was a fan. I left that conversation, Brett, going, I don't know anything about the game of baseball. I'm horrible. So it was really cool because it humbled you, and it you either accepted it and learned or you just kind of went on and thought you knew everything. But I accepted it. I learned as much as I could. So I brought that same mentality into pretty much every day that I scouted. So yeah.
I was going to ask you, obviously they teach you stuff at scout school, but like you personally, excuse me, what were you looking for? Like, what are the intangibles or the projectability of certain guys? Like, what were you looking for in a player?
Well, when as I started to kind of develop my own style and watch amateur baseball again after being away for 7, 8 years, being a professional player, I wanted to see grittiness. I wanted to see a kid that showed me something more than the rest. I wanted to see that kid trot out to the field with confidence. You can see those players, they just stand out. I wanted to see a kid step in the box and maybe take a glance at the pitcher and get comfortable and then get into a position. You can see the smoothness of their body actions. It wasn't always the best athlete that I always found. It was the player that had the most confidence and the most savviness, the baseball athlete, the baseball player. So I was always looking for that guy that attracted my eye. And then obviously there's the intangibles in terms of, a pitcher that has good balance, that has good repeatability to his actions, that like, hey, this kid's a student of the game. He's thrown multiple bullpens. He's probably a kid that goes home and just, standing in front of the mirror or waiting for dinner to get put on the table, whatever that would be. He's probably doing his wind up. Somebody that was really consistent in their game. That was always somebody that I really liked to go out and try to find. Yeah.
Sure. Who do you think is the best player you scouted, either in college or high school or anything? Because obviously, I mean, you helped sign Troy Tulowitzki as one of the best, shortstops. Yeah. But who's the best player you ever evaluated?
Well, there's so many players that I had the opportunity to be around and evaluate. There were a couple good players that I think I was probably one of the first scouts to ever watch play. A kid, Jared Page, ended up playing in the NFL. Out of San Leandro High School in a really bad part of Oakland. Dennis Banks was right behind him that also played in the NFL. But Jared Page was a kid that, was just pure athleticism. When you talk about a kid that you want every athlete to be like, this was him. And he would pick up a ball from center field, one hop, and throw that ball on a line to home plate. And he had no clue what he was doing. Totally humble, loved the football mentality. Another kid, Adam Jones, really bad part of San Diego. I had to get escorted onto this field to go see him play. I'm asking the coach, hey, which one's Adam Jones? He goes, why are you here for Adam Jones? I said, well, I heard that he's a pretty good player. An umpire actually turned me on to him. And the coach says, nah, you don't want to see Adam Jones. And I said, well, I think I'll make that determination myself. Which one is he? Wouldn't tell me. So come to find, he's not hard to
Sure.
spot out. He's a physical, athletic-looking kid,
Right.
And he could run like the wind. And so I think the next game I went back to see him that week. Tony Gwynn was there. 40 other scouts were there. But I think overall, really, I don't know that you can get better than Troy Tulowitzki. I got a chance to scout Tulo when I was at the Angels in Northern California. And then when I came down to Southern California, I ended up being with the Rockies. And just to see how a kind of small frame, skinny shortstop that had some ability in San Jose, then comes into Long Beach State with that team of great players. I mean, we're talking some great players that came out of there for the 3-year stretch, 4-year stretch. He became a leader. He lifted. He was a character guy. I remember when he broke his wrist, I was close with Dave Snow, and I got a chance to go down and watch him work out. And we're working on just his arm side, and very humble, appreciated things, wanted to learn, and just a go-getter. So I was truly honored to be a part of that. I drafted him in the first round to be there as a scout, and witness that. Ian Stewart was another good one, but I think one of my probably more favorite ones was Steven Andrade. Steven Andrade, right-handed pitcher, senior sign out of Cal State Stanislaus, $1,000. I mean, senior sign, there's no bargaining chips there. It is what it is. But he had like a little bent finger or something where his fastball kind of, ran in, had that natural bore to it. And I remember working with him a little bit during the off season, and got him to just kind of fix his front side drive a little bit. He goes to spring training, goes to AA, goes to AAA, ends up being the closer for the Royals and making himself some money. And I think he's still working in baseball. So it's stories like that where there's just countless. But I was always a guy that liked to go into the homes, try to educate the families on what the signability really means. So if you're going to tell a scout, I'm signable for average in the first round or average in the seventh round, understand what that means and then how baseball views average compared to slot average. So I really like to educate the families on that and make sure that they knew exactly what they were getting into, because I didn't want any kid to go through what I went through, where you overprice yourself, and then come that second, third round in that draft, you're going, hey, I'm still here. The phone's not ringing. Call me. They've already taken you off the board. So, I really enjoyed the interaction part there too.
Sure.
I had some great picks. Yeah.
Oh, totally. And actually, so just side note, I was there a few years after Tulowitzki, Longoria, and Weaver at Long Beach State. So I got to learn all about those guys after I was there right after them. But definitely a ton of talent there. But that's good. Yeah. You were able to educate some of those families that you know what you went through, and able to show them, hey, this is really how it goes, or this is what you can do to your draft stock if you say the wrong thing, maybe. So good.
Yeah. Sorry, my dogs are barking.
No, that's okay. I was going to say, you decided to get out of baseball finally at some point, and you went into business marketing and development marketing and various corporate companies over the next 10 years. How would you summarize, the reason you wanted to get out of baseball at that point, and then what those next 10 years were like for you?
So, it was really easy for me to walk away from the game. I was at a ball game. I shouldn't say easy. It was an easy decision for me where I was at mentally, because I'm at my son's ball game. Dylan was probably 5 or 6. My wife is holding my daughter's hand, and she's probably 2 or 3, and they're walking down the left field line, and I'm on the phone with one of my scouting supervisors, and I'm trying to watch Dylan hit. I'm talking about a player on my phone, and I'm watching my wife and my daughter walk down the line. I put my head down because my scouting supervisor needs information. Then I'm trying to find a pitching rotation out of my back pocket because I had all my notes. Scouting's a 24/7 job. You got to be on it. You have to be married to it. And I miss my son's at bat. He's standing at first base. He's high-fiving the other coach. And I'm watching my wife and my daughter walk away, and I realized I'm done. I need to find something else. I want to be here. This is where I want to be. I want to be with my family. And it was a tough decision in terms of I loved baseball and I didn't quite know what I was going to be doing, but I loved to coach as well. So I had given lessons, probably like you did probably,
Yeah.
So I opened up an indoor training facility, which led me into meeting a really good friend of mine that was the CEO at Shock Doctor Sports at the time. And I'm giving lessons to his son. We're having this conversation, like, what do you want to do? I said, I want something more. I feel like I want to be able to do something different than baseball. And he says, well, go into business development. So I said, well, I don't even know what that is. So he goes, give me your phone. So he goes to my phone. He goes through it. He goes, you mind if I go through your contacts? I said, no, go ahead, Tony. Whatever you want to do. So he looks at my phone. He goes, I just found 3 names. It would probably take me about 6 months to get to know these people. I bet you could probably just call them. I said, well, tell me who they are. So he went 1, 2, 3. I said, yep. I could probably have dinner with him tomorrow. I can give, if I'm, whatever. And he goes, that's business development. Like you bring to the table, especially in the sports industry. So I ended up he introduced me to the CEO and owner of Skills down in Carlsbad. And one of the first things they asked me to do was take a look at our baseball line of product, our packaging, our athletes on the box, basically be a scout and identify any major flaws that you see with any of the athletic movements on a package, and then read the descriptions on what that batting tee does or what the net does, and tell us if there's any baseball lingo that we can mix in. So I do this. Well, funny story is I'm go through a couple months of research, and this is like 100 and something products. I'm bringing in guys like Bobby Gritch and Tom Bernansky and David Newhan and a bunch of dudes, and we're all like testing product in the warehouse. That's my job. Well, then all of a sudden I say, okay, I'm done. And I said, all right, cool. We're going to do a presentation. Can you put all that information into an Excel spreadsheet? Because I delivered written out, papered, info notes. And I'm like, an Excel spreadsheet. And they said, yeah. I'm like, sure. So I go home like, Brett, I don't even know what an Excel spreadsheet was. So they gave me a computer, but I wasn't using it. So I ended up having to really study and learn over a weekend on what that was. I went in and did a great job. And it led me into, again, I had some great people around me in that building, in that industry, that were willing to open their door and invite me in and teach me. And I've always been a student, I've always wanted to learn. And so I learned a lot. I think I ended up producing over 2,000 instructional videos and commercials, did some Hollywood stuff in that regard, business development, created some key partnerships, fell in love with that stuff, which then led me into United Sports Brands, where I did the same type of stuff. And next thing you know, I'm sitting there on set with DeMarcus Cousins on a basketball shoot. I had just done one with Kevin Love. We're doing a deal with the NBA. I've got a shoot with Jamal Charles coming up with the NFL, and I'm sitting there going, this is amazing. It's really, really cool. Yeah. But again, yeah, it's just been a really cool ride.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll get to what you're doing currently a little bit later, but I wanted to, of course, you can't go through an interview without somebody asking you about your dad, of course. So we got to talk about him. When he's got a storied career, but I wanted to ask you, when he finally got inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2011, it was his 14th year on the ballot. What was that like for him and for your family as well?
I mean, it gives me chills just remembering that moment. I know that him and I would talk, really, it was around that like 11th time, 12th time, 30th time. We'd talk on the phone and he would be upset, and I think it was like this 12th year, he actually got really upset and he verbalized some of his outrage because he just couldn't figure out why he wasn't, being inducted. But it was when the stats started coming out. I think Tim Lincecum had received the Cy Young that year, and it was based off of the whip percentage or WAR. And so all of a sudden, like, I think it was Peter Gammons was talking about Schilling, made a comment. Schilling was a definite Hall of Famer. And who was it? Jim Palmer, I think, said, well, if you think Schilling's a Hall of Famer, then you have to agree that Bert Blyleven's a Hall of Famer. And Gammons said, I don't think so. So the next night they came back and they shared stats on Schilling. Now, Schilling, great pitcher, right? Schilling versus Blyleven in postseason, during season. And my dad's stats just blew everything out of the water. And so Gammons turns around and says, I think I'm going to vote for Blyleven, So it was kind of a cool change.
That is cool.
But that's really what turned it. And I remember when my dad got that call, he was just a kid in a candy store, and, his whole dreams of, it's every kid's dream, is to get inducted to the Hall. It was such a really cool, neat experience to go through that with your dad, someone you looked up to and admired growing up, wanting to be and put that uniform on. It was so cool to watch him go through that. So, yeah. That's
amazing. What a great, just to finally get that, it's just,
aha moment.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And he's also, been a longtime broadcaster, mainly for the Minnesota Twins. How would you describe him as a broadcaster and kind of his style compared to others? I've seen it, he'll tell you like it is, but how do you think he's handled, the change in the game also? I know he's all, obviously a very old school guy. So how do you characterize him as a broadcaster?
Well, I loved being a student of the game. I loved listening and watching him announce the game. I loved when he would get into the nitty gritty on, pitchers and what they're thinking in a game, or setting up hitters, or the old school mentality of, a hitter would look a pitcher back in the eye if a pitcher brushed him back, And he would say, you know what I would do right there. That pitcher, that hitter's going down. But he brought a sense of reality to the fan inside, their living room, on what that game felt like, the momentum of it. And he was funny too. I mean, our dad's always been a character. In the clubhouse. He loved the game of baseball. He was articulate in how he spoke about it. He did his homework. I mean, every night, what you guys didn't see was, my dad did everything on index cards. He had a note for every single hitter. He went down, he spoke to the hitters, he spoke to the coaches. He did his homework. Every night that guy was working, trying to do the best job he could, because he knew that his job at that time was to bring entertainment and realism, to that fan, and to keep that fan entertained. When a few years ago, when all of a sudden, baseball decided to put charts and lines all over the TV and start talking about launch angles and stuff, Fox ended up doing a big, they brought all their announcers into Malibu in Southern California for a big, gala type thing, and meetings, corporate meetings, right? But they ended up talking about all this stuff. And so afterwards, I remember I was at In-N-Out with my dad, because he loves In-N-Out. And so we're sitting there, and he goes, you wouldn't believe what they want to do. They want to put all these charts and lines and all these things all over. Like, why can't we just talk about the game? It's going to get ridiculous. But he really fell in love with it. He started really, falling in love with the technology, the teleprompter. He loved the teleprompter. Circle Me, Bert.
I was going to ask you about that. So what is this? There's this phenomenon, the Circle Me thing. So he started this, and so I guess, could you explain what that is and how it all evolved?
Well, so in terms of how it started, it probably started with my dad fooling around with the teleprompter and circling people.
Right.
But where it evolved was, he would try to find fans that were really energetic and loved being there in Minnesota, just a true Twins fan. And he would circle him. He'd say, you hereby have been circled. And it grew and grew, where thousands of fans, not only in Minnesota, but all over the country, would bring these signs saying, Circle Me, Bert. And so, he ended up selling T-shirts and everything. All the proceeds went to Parkinson's charities. My dad does a lot of stuff with charities and, a lot of youth foundations. So he gives back a lot. He always has, since the days when he used to get on the top of his Harley and he'd ride down with police escort. He'd be in his Santa suit, and they'd ride down to Chalk Hospital, and he'd get off his Harley with a big bag of toys, and he'd run in, and nobody ever knew that was my dad, but he did those things. So Circle Me, Bird is a great example of him just having fun with the game. And unfortunately, Dad's last year was this year, so hopefully we'll get to see him on MLB TV or something else.
Okay, so he's not done broadcasting. He still wants to be involved.
Yeah, Dad. He'll be with the Twins in the next 5 years or so. He'll be in spring training, and he'll go up to Minnesota, and he'll kind of do the meet and greets and things. But he really loves being on air. So I would imagine, I always thought, like, if Texas, especially the places he played, had him in for a weekend, he's so charismatic.
Yeah.
I mean, he just lights it up, and has fun, that I'm sure somebody will invite him out. Yeah.
Gotcha. Hopefully. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to transition into something completely different, and I appreciate you, allowing us to hear your story on this. You were part of, the shocking tragedy of the country concert in Vegas that, ended with a shooting and everything. And whatever you're willing to talk about, would be great. What can you recount from, October 1st, 2017, whatever you're willing to share?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you, setting that up in that way. It was, I think, probably the things that are probably most important here to talk about would be, we went there to go have a great time. We were, you never expect that anything like that is ever going to happen to you. It was me and my wife, my brother-in-law, his wife. We had there were 18 of us, younger adults as well, that we considered to be family. We had known since they were about 10. We were all together, which was kind of a little strange. We were always together anyways, but more scattered out. At this time, we were all together in one small pack. And then all of a sudden, to be in a concert where you're smiling and having fun, and then see people around you get shot is horrifying, to say the least. So you go down, and you try to protect those around you. And luckily, I had recognized super quick that it was coming from an elevated position, and I knew we had to get somewhere to seek shelter. We were in the middle of, there was nothing around us, so we were sitting ducks. People around us were getting hit, so I grabbed my wife and we all started to run. I was able to get them out of the concert pretty quick within the third round of fire. And at that moment, I'm out, and I've got my family out. I got my wife out, which was the most important thing. You're running, and all you're thinking about is, please God, don't take my wife. And I'm trying to be a shield and try to protect her, trying to make myself a big target. So we got out, and I was able to help somebody lay a girl down. And at that moment, I knew that, there was something else I needed to do. And so I sent my wife out with my brother-in-law and his wife. I told them to keep running north away from the gunfire. You don't know, at this time, we thought there were multiple gun shooters. But I ran back in and carried out a lot of people under gunfire, some that didn't make it, and unfortunately passed in my arms that night, and mostly women. And so, one of the things, without going into all the details, one of the more uplifting moments in that whole tragedy and terror was, yes, you're as scared as you could be. You're shaking, you're thirsty, you're tired, you're sore, but you keep getting up and going back in because of the love you have for mankind, for humanity. You don't care who they are that you're trying to get out. People are in need. So you're doing whatever you can to just run up, lift, bring out to, a secure location and lay down and get your butt back up and go. And, whether that was the training that we went through as athletes, or it was just people, what you have in your heart, all I wanted to do was help people. And of course I didn't want to die. I didn't want to get shot.
Sure.
But I knew that people needed help. And so when I first started going in and out, I was really probably one of the only few that were with me or that were going back in. I didn't see anybody go back in. I saw a lot of people come out, saw brave women that, were nurses that, were asking what they could do, and me guiding them to the people that started to mass up that were injured. But over the course of, 10, 20, 30 times going in and out and bringing people, the more people started coming out of where they were hiding and coming back in and started running in with me. And there was a lot of people going in and out, and a lot of people helping people on the floor, on the ground. A lot, people were stealing cars, trying to get people into the cars to take them to hospitals. So the amount of people that were there with me at the end helping, I was truly blessed. And it didn't end. It went on for about 6.5, 7 hours, where it was constant terror. We thought there were shootings up and down the strip. A lot of heroes, a lot of brave people. I've got a giant tattoo on my arm that signifies 5 of the bravest people that were there with me that night. Route 91, the angel that was there with me that protected me from being shot and killed. And I was blessed. I'm honored to have gone back in. I'm thankful to my brother-in-law and my wife for being courageous to, go and seek shelter. And I'm so blessed to have been around those brave men and women that, decided to help just people try to live. So it was a terrifying night. One of the things, I work with some law enforcement agencies. I've given some talks, and it's now dealing with the PTSD, the aftermath. I went through EMDR therapy. A friend of mine that's a captain in San Francisco Fire ended up calling me a little bit after and said, "Hey, you need to go through EMDR. It's a new therapy training where they use vibration. It's like paddles, and it just vibrates left and right, and it sends signals to your brain and allows you." Because what happens is, and I'll try to keep this brief, but
sure,
what happens when you go through a traumatic experience like that is everything is stored into the bottom part of your brain. And when you try to go replay it, that's why you're so confused. When you try to go replay it, all of a sudden you're seeing like the end of the story, the middle of the story, and the beginning of the story, and you're seeing everything else mixed up somewhere, or sometimes the end is the beginning, and it's all mumbo jumbo. And what EMDR therapy did was it allowed me to process piece by piece by piece. And of course, in going through that processing, I remembered more. And the more I remembered, the more I was able to cry, and the more I was able to let it out, and the more I was able to process. I still deal with it every day.
Sure.
PTSD is not an easy thing to, you don't forget it. That's the first lesson, that you learn is you're not going to get over it. And here in the United States, when somebody passes or something traumatic happens, we're like, hey, get back up on your feet. You're good. Where in other countries, people mourn, and it's okay to do that. And that's where I really realized that it's okay to be nice to people. It's okay to, accept that you have something going on inside, and, to just lift up your heart. And so I walk every step now with my boots with love and just more joy in my life. And, I really try to just take advantage of being here with my wife and my kids. But it's you always have to be careful of when you go into a place, understanding where your exit points are, be vigilant in a way that you're still able to have fun and enjoy yourself, but don't ever be caught off guard. And because you just never know, unfortunately, in the society we live in, that things like that do happen, and so you want to be in a position where you can protect yourself and those around you, but yet still have fun, and we're getting back to that point now where my wife and I can go to a concert, and we can enjoy ourselves. We went into Nashville a couple of weeks ago and we had fun, and that's all I want, is just to be able to, for her and I to go and dance again. And
yeah,
we still haven't been to Vegas. We're planning on going back. We'll walk our walk and we'll pay our respects, and that's going to be a really tough trip. But I was, just really honored I was able to have enough courage to go back in and help. So.
That is an amazing story, man. I once again, I really appreciate you sharing that. I think there are some positives out of it that you were able to gain. Obviously, it's one of the toughest things you've ever had to go through. So thank you again for sharing that story.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, definitely. And now I guess we can move to a lighter note. I want to talk to you about the Scout Hub.
Right.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. This is your new venture.
Yeah.
And I guess go through what that is and what the Scout Hub is meant to do for players and getting them more exposure.
Yeah. So, we've all helped players and we've tried to link them to, whether it's their journey in high school or recruiting in college or pro ball one day if that comes calling on them. But I wanted to start an organization where I would link everyday athletes from youth to high school, college, even pro guys, to the best evaluators in the game, being MLB scouts. In today's game, there's a lot of scouts that are losing their jobs due to analytics. And now with COVID, so I wanted to provide them an opportunity as well to stay in the game, stay tuned mentally, and just give them hope as well. So I created the Scout Hub, and it's a really simple and easy, very affordable. I kept the price way down. Being a dad, I get probably 20 emails a week for my son to go to this camp or that camp. And a lot of them are great camps, and I'm not taking anything away from the camps or any of the organizations because they're great organizations. The travel ball organizations, it's all great. But I wanted to build a company where we could become a professional resource to these organizations, to a coach that's giving lessons, to a travel ball team, coach that's working with their players. You don't have 20 minutes, 30 minutes to work with each individual athlete. So why not, for an affordable cost, have your players send a video in, game video, practice video. It's analyzed by professional scouts. They get back a professional report with corrective feedback, grades on their mechanics, actual scouts notes. And then what I added to it too was trending analysis sheets. So now that athlete can create a baseline, come back, get reevaluated after he's or her has trained and worked hard, and then see where that growth has taken them. So it creates training sheets. I actually have colleges now that are asking for those, and on the recruiting side. So it's fully evolved, but we're planning on launching in other sports as well, and just super excited. I love, again, helping people. It's helping athletes grow and develop, and it's $50. We're doing fundraisers and royalty programs now for high schools where they can actually make some money, and then I give back to the Children of Fallen Heroes Fund, which I really enjoy. So it's been a really cool project. I developed an app for scouts, and that's a separate piece, but I looked at today's scouting systems, and it's the same systems that I used back in 2009. So I went and modified it and took analytics and metrics and married the two. So old school meets new school scouting, and it compiles all these numbers, and it's just amazing on the back end, but it's super easy to where a youth coach can use it and customize it to youth metrics and analytics, and it spits out this really easy number. My wife could use it to the pro scout that wants to get as detailed as possible. So we're going international with that, and you can find that on iTunes under the Scout Hub. So super excited.
That's awesome. So how did you figure out which guys were going to be the evaluators, or who do you go after in that regard?
It's funny. I spoke to, my dad, of course, wanted to help more on the development side and the back end with some pitching metrics. And I, was talking to Mike McCucci, and then, I've got a lot of friends that I know have lost their jobs or are in transition. And so just talking to some of them, now I have scouts calling me probably two or three a week asking, hey, how do I get involved with this? I want to work for you. So we've, on our About Us page, I've got an A-list of characters on my advisor board. Guys like Mike Eaglin and Dexter Harris, and guys that just have all these years of experience seeing the best players in the game and sharing stories like I shared with the Troy Tulowitzkis of the world. And, you're going into homes, you're hearing the stories of the moms and dads. So these people understand it. Then on the softball side, I've got girls like Carly Hoover and others that were Team USA, members or current members, current former or current pro players like Samantha Chow and other players, Dave Majeski that played baseball at University of Florida, and now he's a softball hitting guru. He does events all over the country. So it's I'm a big character person. So as long as they've got character and some savviness in the game, we'll definitely take them on. And we're just really happy to be helping a lot of organizations right now, and fundraising too. So it's a program I put together a couple weeks ago to give back.
It feels like everything you've done in your life is culminated into the Scout Hub, right? You get to help people. You still get to stay in baseball. You get to scout. It's like the whole deal. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really blessed. And, along the way too, I've consulted, and I get to consult with brands like Pocket Radar and others, but just be around some cool people. You talk about a brand that makes you really humble. And Pocket Radar was built by engineers. These people were like, they're HP and Apple and, Navy and NASA. And So I get into these meetings and I'm just quiet. Let me know when you want to know something about baseball or coaching. I'm good.
Right.
But, yeah, it's pretty cool. So
that's awesome. Last thing I got for you. Any fun stories or one that you remember from being a kid in the clubhouse back in the day, or just your dad's career? Any just great story from baseball?
So many funny
I'm sure you got a
ones,
ton.
good ones. I remember like when I was probably 7 or 8 years old. I was bat boying for the Pirates. And Kent Tekulve told me he needed something out of his locker. So I ran up, I'm running up to go get something, for Kent Tekulve out of his locker. And I get up there and a couple players grab me, and it was like the second inning, grab me and tape me to a chair. So now I'm sitting there completely taped for 7 innings to a chair. The game goes on. The game's over. Everybody's walking by me. I'm looking at everybody like, are you going to cut me loose? They didn't cut me loose for another hour or so after. It was hilarious. Stories like that to, being able to ride my skateboard all the way. For like a year, I thought I was a skater. So I'd take my skateboard and ride it down, Yankee Stadium or in the Cubs or whatever. A lot of just, a lot of fun stuff. Players, they didn't mean any harm by it, but I always thought it was cool when they teased me or razzed me. It was because they enjoyed me being around, Right. And they were like picking on their little brother sort of thing, and it brought light to them too, So just a lot of fun. I mean, my dad was a character, so he always enjoyed lighting it up, and I mean lighting shoes on fire and all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, he was a prankster, wasn't he?
Oh, big time. Yeah, Jim Abbott, I think, his first day in the clubhouse, my dad did something I cannot repeat on air.
Sure.
That I think Jim's, eyes got this big. It was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? I'm going back to Michigan. But yeah, and that's the other thing too, is just all the relationships you get to have with amazing, not just baseball players, but amazing men, at that level that, you saw them grind every single day and go through their adversities of loss and success. So super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think you got a World Series ring with the 2002 Angels winning, right?
I did. Yeah. So yeah, it's fun. It's kind of cool. So my dad got one in 79, one in 87. I got one in 2002 for scouting. And then my dad got his Hall of Fame ring. So we were at the All-Star game in Minnesota a few years ago, and my son, Dylan, was probably, he's probably 12 at the time or so, however many years that was. So my dad had his 3 rings, and I had mine. And so Dylan's got all 4 rings, and he's going like this. And, yeah, they're all just 4 right there, just blinging. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. So.
Did you feel like when you and the Rockies got close in 2007, too, they got to the World Series, you almost got another one there. But cool. Did you feel like when the Angels won it, and obviously, I mean, we could go on a discussion about them forever since then, but when they did get it, did you feel like some of your guys were up in the big leagues that you had scouted, or did you feel like you were really part of that championship run?
Oh, I thought I was part of it too. They, I did some advanced coverage as well. So, flew up to Seattle and sat on Ichiro and Jamie Moyer, and, totally contributed in that way to scouting. So you felt like you were connected. And, the great thing, I was with 2 really cool clubs because they really made the scouts, the baseball operational staff, they really relied on us in terms of, what we were bringing to the table. They made us feel like we're really important. I've seen other clubs where it was a complete opposite, and they leaned more on their analysts or their tech advisors, in terms of their right and left hand people. But both those clubs really gave a lot of attention to, they just you felt like family. And so when they won, you were super excited, not just for the players because you had this personal connection to them anyways, but you felt like, hey, I did it. So
and you got drafted by Anaheim anyway, so you were a true Angel,
Yeah, 10 minutes down the road. Yeah, they're still my favorite team. So
okay.
Don't tell anybody else I said that.
No, I won't. I won't tell your dad your favorite team's not Minnesota either.
Yeah, or Texas.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Todd? I could do this for you for like 3 hours. So I really appreciate it. Great insight, great stories. This is one of my favorite episodes. So thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me, Brett, and
Yes,
good luck
definitely.
to the rest of your stuff here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Hope you guys really enjoyed that episode. I want to thank Todd for opening up to us about that night. I had talked to him pre-show. I didn't know he was one of the people that was at that concert, but just the fact that he was willing to open up, I really appreciated that from him. Hopefully you guys could get some insight on how crazy that was, and just hearing from someone that was actually at that concert 3 years ago. But overall, hope you guys enjoyed the episode in general. I thought he had a lot of awesome insight, and just, the exposure to Major League Baseball that he had at a young age is, unmatched. So hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to follow his stuff, you can find him at thescouthub.com. On Twitter, I think it's at the Scout Hub, or the Hub Scout 1, and then I think on Instagram it's at the Scout Hub 1. But in general, you can just type in the Scout Hub and you can find him there, or you can look him up by his full name. But anyway, as always, you can find the show Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, everywhere. And if you want to watch the show, you can always check us out on the YouTube channel. Type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. Follow me on Instagram at Too Tall Sports Podcast as well. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports. Either way, great to have you in today, and I hope you really enjoyed it. I'd love to hear some feedback. If any of you want to shoot me an email or a message, let me know, because I hope you guys got something out of that episode today. So enjoy your day, and we'll see you for another great episode very soon.